So I'm going to just keep it really short and just say we're going to get started. And thanks for coming. And thanks to just everyone for being here. And so back to Michael.
All right. Thank you, Alexi. So we will get started. Just a couple of quick things, logistics for the evening. For our, there we go, 2 audiences. First, for those of you who are participating virtually this evening, your camera will be off. The microphone will also remain off, but there's opportunities to type in your question and answers for this evening. For everyone in both places, this meeting is being recorded this evening, so we can share it with those who weren't able to make it in either format tonight, but asked us to do that so that they could watch after the fact. Tonight's agenda, welcome and introductions. We'll have a little information, a report from our Governance and Nominations Committee regarding our board for the year ahead. We'll talk about the accomplishments of the organization from over the past year, look ahead to 2022 and some of the exciting things we have coming up this year. We'll do a deep dive briefing on our Charles Bank Landing project, which many of you are familiar with from the public information we released in the last 6 months or so. Over the course of the last 4 years, of course, we've been talking a lot about this project. And finally, we'll end with a question and answer session this evening. But I wanted to first begin, as we have for the last several annual meetings where we've come together, by remembering that the Esplanade in much of its surrounding land was originally inhabited by the Massachusetts tribe along the banks of the Quinnipiac River. We look to honor and respect these 64 acres despite a painful history that preceded our gathering today. We will soon share some progress made on our diversity, equity, inclusion, and access priorities later in this meeting, which includes more fully understanding the early history of our park. We are still learning more about that history so that we may pay tribute today and in our work going forward with our partners and visitors, and we hope that you will join us. And so at this time, it's my great pleasure and Alexi's to welcome our partner representing the Department of Conservation and Recreation is Commissioner Stephanie Cooper. The Esplanade Association is celebrating our 21st year in partnership with DCR, though our first in partnership with Commissioner Cooper. And so we really appreciate you being here tonight to offer a few words of welcome.
Well, thank you very much. So Michael alluded to the 21st year, and so over more than 20 years, our 2 organizations have worked together, and DCR will begin its 20th year this summer. So we're about the same age, and we've kind of grown up together in many ways. And you know, I really wanted to come here tonight just to thank you for your partnership. You know, it's heartening to see everyone together. It's heartening just and fun to be together and to know that there are so many more people who are joining virtually. It just is a reminder that it takes all of us to take care of our public lands. And we so appreciate everything that the Esplanade Association does. And so we appreciate your philanthropy and your support in all of the forms that it comes, which are many. And I'll just mention a couple because I know you have, you know, a very full agenda here. So I will say, you know, DCR has many properties to take care of, and we're lucky in that way, but we really need partners like the Esplanade Association to help us elevate those special properties. And I would say that the Esplanade is really one of the crown jewels of our system. And I appreciate that the Esplanade Association has in its mission the notion of building community. And I feel like that is one of many areas where you excel, and it really elevates the property and complements the work that DCR does. And I think you know, you do it at a very high level. And so I would just mention the recent Frozen in Life exhibit that I got to attend with my family and friends that really, you know, activated the space and reminded people that spring was coming, even though it was, you know, rainy for part of it and muddy. You know, it was really wonderful. It was unique and different, and something that DCR would not have been able to do. On the other hand, we really appreciate that EA is always ready to roll up its sleeves with us, you know, looking at, you know, tree canopy management, which is so important, you know, dealing with graffiti, dealing with bike and pedestrian conflicts, and making sure that everybody has a space that's important to use in the park. And so, you know, all of that is so important, and there's so much more, and there's wonderful investments that you've brought to the property of all kinds. But I just wanted to sort of, you know, highlight the depth and breadth of our partnership and say that we, you know, appreciate you for everything that you do. And I'm glad to be with you here celebrating the annual meeting tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Really, as I mentioned, I mean, it was a wonderful opportunity over the last year to celebrate our partnership with DCR. And there's really nothing that we do in the park that isn't through the continuing partnership that we have with the state agency. We also have a really close partnership with our elected officials, several of whom are able to be with us here tonight. It's through that partnership where we're able to understand the sentiments of the public, the ways in which they hope to see our work manifest in the revitalization of the park, identifying resources to put towards capital restoration and improvement, programming, and so much more. And the first representative that I'd like to bring up tonight is Senator Will Brownsberger.
Let me begin by echoing the commissioner's words of thanks. What you do for the Esplanade is so special. I've enjoyed the Esplanade for all of my life and intend to enjoy it for the rest of my life. And so I'm personally grateful for all that you do for the Esplanade. I speak on behalf of my many constituents and the larger public in expressing gratitude for the support that you give to what the commissioner rightly referred to as one of, or I would say, the crown jewel of the park system. I want to just mention a couple of things that are happening that I think are exciting. I am really excited about the project that we have upcoming, working with MassDOT and with DCR to rebuild the scramble of ramps where Starro goes off over towards Fenway, just next to the Massap Bridge, just beyond the Massap Bridge from here along the Esplanade. We're going to move all those ramps back 50 some feet when we're going to daylight the Muddy River. And so what now is, once you get under Mass Ave, you have to scramble through those ramps. You will be in open air. You'll go over a beautiful little bridge over the Muddy River and continue on down the bike path, and you'll have green to your left, and it's going to be a completely different experience. And I think it'll join together the two halves of the Esplanade, this end and then everything beyond that, which is kind of a barrier that separates the space. So that's going to be great. And that's going to be another 5 or 10 years in the process. But we have great engineering talent at MassDOT that has really figured out a way to make this happen. And I'm excited about seeing it happen. And I want to say how much I appreciate DCR as an agency. They have an enormous collection of fabulous assets, which begins here, but there's all kinds of jewels all over the state. There's the crown jewels, but there's a lot of hidden jewels. And they have a lot of wonderful people as well that are working really hard to make those jewels something that everybody can enjoy. Working with this new commissioner, the legislature is very committed to thinking through what we need to do to make the agency stronger, more responsive, more able to manage the full range of assets that it has. And we've gone through a study process over the past couple of years. Commissioners following through with a strategic planning process. And there's a lot of us in the legislature that really want to think through the charter of the commission, think through the structure of the the department, and continue to make those crown jewels shine and empower all the great people that are working at the agency to reach their full potential in contributing. So really glad to be with you this evening. Grateful for the opportunity, and thank you again for all that you do.
And so while the Esplanade is a state park, it also enjoys a really close partnership with our friends at the City of Boston, and representing the city is our City Councilor, Kenzie Bach.
Hello, everyone. I will be brief, but I just want to echo all the thanks to everyone in the room for supporting, and on the Zoom, for supporting the Esplanade Association. And just it's I think really the ideal of a public-private partnership, one in which it just huge benefit redounds to the whole public. And again, as others have said, it is for me my go-to park. I live on Beacon Hill, and I walk down and walk over it, and I've done a lot of my thinking and pondering these last few years working in government along the paths. And I always smile about the number of people who like use it as the background in their social media profiles. And I think that's our park. And yes, it is a place you want to memorialize. So I'm really proud that, along with that public-private partnership with the state, that we in the city of Boston are able to partner as well. Obviously, the state is the leader and the owner of this park, but we're actually going to have a hearing tomorrow night on the Community Preservation Act funding for the city provides. And I'm excited that we've got again on the docket there, I think it's 18.8 thousand to plant 50 trees in the Esplanade over the next 2 seasons. And there's been Community Preservation Act allocations before over the last few years for tree planting. And I think that's really a recognition of the fact that when we talk about our climate crisis, when we talk about the lungs of the city, the things that we all need for the city of Boston and the people in it to thrive, that those things do not follow city, state, jurisdictional boundaries, right? They're all a connected ecosystem. And so Will was just alluding to, I think it would be so thrilling if we could connect the Fens and the Esplanade pieces of the ecosystem. But I also think that, the city's very proud of the fact that every time you plant a tree in the Esplanade or care for the water and the surrounding ecosystem, it's all about the air that all of us breathe and the green space that all of us enjoy. So I'm very grateful for the leadership of my state colleagues in supporting you all up at the legislature, definitely Senator Brownsberger, and also, as is mentioned on the slide, Senator DiDomenico. Senator Edwards has just joined us in stewardship there. She's my colleague on the council, but is going to the State House. And then Rep. Jay Livingstone, who is just constantly thinking about, as you all know, the Esplanade Association is one of your board members. So I'm very proud to be the sort of city side of that delegation and grateful to join you all tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Kenzie. And I would just echo what the counselor said, that, we're really appreciative for the support throughout our entire delegation. The state senators you see on the screen, Senator DiDomenico and Senator Edwards couldn't be here tonight. We're delighted to have Senator Edwards recently take office and be able to work alongside Will and Sal in support of the Esplanade, in addition to Rep. Livingstone. And so our thanks to all of them. We also want to acknowledge and thank a number of partners, many of whom are here on the Zoom tonight, who make our work possible. We won't introduce all of these individually, but I'm sure many of you in the room see an organization that you support represented here tonight, and we appreciate your continued partnership with us as well. This just goes to show just how much partnership it takes to operate a park, to enliven it, to fix it up, to program it, to make it healthier, to make it resilient. There's so many different ways in which we partner on what we do at the Esplanade Association, and this is just a collection of some of those partners, and we appreciate all of their continued partnership with us. I'd also be remiss not to help connect you with who made tonight possible, but also who does so much of the work in support of the Esplanade over the course of the year. A fantastic staff of the Esplanade Association. I'd ask you to join me in giving them a round of applause. Would the Esplanade Association staff just raise your hand so folks around the room can see you, since yeah. You can often see me and you can always hear me, but those guys certainly do so much to accomplish the work that we bring to the park each day. I'd ask Alexi to rejoin me actually to help acknowledge and thank and introduce the other half of that puzzle for us, the staff and the board. We're appreciative for those of you that voted in the proxy vote that we sent out a couple of weeks ago. We're delighted to announce the results of the vote in support of the officer slate for 2022 and 2023, continuing as chair, Alexi Conine, as vice chair, starting Emmy Winterer in the room, Harvey Becker as treasurer, also in the room this evening, and Tom Lewis, who's traveling out of the country and couldn't be here. Thank you all for agreeing to serve as officers for the year ahead. 3-year board member terms renewing: Alexi Conine, Bob Hedges, Tom Lewis, and Joan Patton. And joining our board of directors over the last year, and so our first annual meeting here tonight, Hope Sidman. So thank you to you all. And a welcome to our full board of directors, many of whom, why don't you raise your hands and be acknowledged, who are here tonight. Thank you so much for what you do. In addition, and we'll be honoring them a little bit later in the meeting, but we had 2 members of our board who hit their term limit with the Esplanade Association this year, Frank Paniotto and Alicia Towns Franken, who were unanimously approved by our Governance and Nominations Committee to join the Directors Emeritus. And so you see them listed here, and they'll be acknowledged a little later in the evening. So thank you to all of you and to Alexi for everything that you do in support of the Esplanade Association.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so we will keep moving with the agenda. So to talk about something that's been a really major area of our work over the last couple of years, we were thrilled over the last year to formalize the organization's commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. This was a joint staff board process that had task force involved on both our board and staff. Those groups came together and ultimately finalized a longer version of this statement that you can find on our website. But we thought it important to share with you all tonight the work that our board and staff resolved to do to make continuous transformational progress in our organization that manifest in building partnerships of the type you've heard a little bit about so far tonight that help to increase equitable access to the Esplanade, as well along with our organization, welcoming and amplifying a diverse range of voices and perspectives within the organization and in the park, prioritizing inclusivity and equitable representation, and eliminating barriers that prevent the free and open use of the Esplanade. And so in each of these areas, we've identified probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 different work products or end goals and outcomes that we are striving to meet as both a joint board and staff. We have information that we'll be supplying to our membership in the future on this, in addition to a section in our annual report, which was published today, and we'll send a copy to everyone tomorrow about the work that we did over the course of the last year, where you also be able to read the full statement. But we're really thrilled to be able to move forward in this area, and we'll have a lot more to report at future annual meetings. So this time I would welcome Allison McCray to come up and join me. Allison McCray is our Director of Projects and Planning, to move through a little bit about our volunteers, who we do, so much of what we do, we couldn't do without our volunteers. Our volunteers gave over 5,000 hours of volunteer support for the organization annually over the last several years, over 1,000 individual volunteers just last year alone in one of our most challenged years. And we've really enjoyed the opportunity over the last couple of annual meetings to call attention to a few volunteers in specific and to honor their support of the Esplanade Association. So we just wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about a couple of our impact honorees. The first that's with us tonight, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, is both corporate partner but also super volunteer. Blue Cross has been a partner of the Esplanade Association for many, many, many years, sending corporate volunteer groups, including large field days from the organization, along with helping to staff individual events and activities of the organization. Blue Cross has also been a dedicated sponsor and supporter of many of our events and activities. They're represented tonight in part by Jeff Bellows, a former member of the Esplanade Association Board of Directors, and Yvonne Tang, who's helped move through many, many of our corporate partnerships and through especially the Esplanade 5K presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts over the last several years, and our winter fitness series Frost Fit, which we know many of you have probably had fun working out in the winter on the Esplanade over the course of the last several years. And so just wanted to call you up and provide you just a small token of our appreciation for all you do to support the Esplanade Association and the park. And Sebastian, we may have you come up for this part too. Just take a picture. Our second impact honoree for this evening, we started what I think is a really wonderful tradition last year of acknowledging one or more of our partners from our partner organization, the Department of Conservation and Recreation. We probably could honor this honoree every single year that we offer this this part of our annual meeting. Jenny Norwood, the Director of External Affairs and Partnerships for DCR, is the person. How many of you are from a partner group in the room, and Jenny Norwood is everything to you and making your work within DCR? Thank you for you guys being here. Jenny makes everything for partner groups like the Esplanade Association tick, not just around Boston, but there is one Jenny for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts, coordinating roughly 100 partner groups over the course of the state, coordinating our activities with DCR, helping us to get permits and permissions and access to program events, to fix up structures in the park, to access needed funds within the organization, or getting owner and property owner letters to be able to apply for grants, to coordinating the activities of so much of our work within the Esplanade. It wouldn't be possible without Jenny. And so I know it's a real thrill for us to be able to honor her tonight. I know Allison works quite closely with her as well. I don't know if you have anything to add about your experience working with Jenny.
Oh gosh, well, as Michael said, we all just love working with Jenny so much. You just have such a careful way that you build such deep partnerships with everyone. We appreciate all of your time and your efforts, and just your sparkling wit and personality bring so much to the job just beyond connecting people with DCR. So you're really such a pleasure to work with, and we're really proud to invite you up to the stage to join us for your certificate.
You wanted to be clear to say she's the one on the left in the picture. And our third honoree is actually a group of honorees, the Charles Gate Alliance. Many of you may know the Charles Gate Alliance is a peer nonprofit group of the Esplanades, our friends group, I should say, who is working to redevelop the property that Senator Brownsberger so well summed up earlier. There is a historic park that sits between the connection of the Emerald Necklace and the Esplanade. And through bad roadway decisions of the past or transit needs of the past, our two park systems were severed, and in particular, the beautiful and historic Charles Gate Park was really ruined by the transportation infrastructure through that area. There's been a citizen-led group that has formed and partnered with the Emerald Necklace Conservancy over the last several years to advocate for and design improvements to their park, and in doing so have identified in working with state and local officials, particularly at DCR and MassDOT and our elected delegation, the opportunity to connect back those two park systems to one another, reconnecting 10 acres of land back to the Esplanade, riverfront accessible land, those beautiful groves of trees that currently sit stranded between the two lanes of Storrow Drive would be reconnected once again to the Esplanade for a continuous experience. You'll be able to walk at grade up to and down from the Mass Ave Bridge from the Esplanade. You'll also be able to walk at grade from the Esplanade into the Emerald Necklace through the Charles Gate Park. It is a transformative project, all possible because of a needed roadway improvement in that area. But in needing to improve the roadway experience in that area, there is a real way to transform the experience within our park systems. This will be the type of, I think, lasting change and gift that will be so impactful for so many years to come. And honestly, every member of Boston will see this, will understand it, will experience it, will benefit from it. Several members of the Charles Gate Alliance board had, of course, in true fashion for them, other obligations tonight, other public meetings associated with that project. And so we would not have asked them to be here in lieu of that opportunity, although they are represented on Zoom tonight by an Esplanade Association emeritus director in her own right, Margaret Pokorny. And so we're accepting this on her behalf. We would look forward to an opportunity to honor them at a future opportunity as well. I'd also want to acknowledge, though, Karen Mounty-Brodick, the president of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, who's also here tonight and working very closely in partnership with EA and the Charles Gate Alliance. And so thank you all for the fantastic work you're doing at the Charles Gate. And thank you, Margaret, on Zoom. So two more folks that we'd be remiss not to acknowledge in this section, as I mentioned before, are two departing members of our board, Alicia Towns-Franken and Frank Paniotto, who I understand are both on our Zoom tonight. And so thank you both for your fantastic tenures individually on the Esplanade Association board. Alicia, a longtime board member and governance committee member, has been an important link to the Beacon Hill community and so many others over the course of her tenure and work with the Esplanade Association board. She's provided regular support and consult to me personally, which I will say I love all of my board members, but that's a role that is so often needed. It's so important. Alicia answers every call and provides the support that you could only ever ask for out of a board member, and something that I won't soon forget. Those of you that may know Alicia personally know that her passion and one of her many skill sets, but probably the one that we most got to enjoy, is that she's a sommelier that regularly elevated, I should say, the food and beverage offerings and know-how of our organization with regular offers to support our events with connections, tasting opportunities, consultations, and so much more. That was just one part of her board service with the Esplanade Association. But many on the staff know that I've run into Alicia at least in 2 different wine sections at grocery stores in the area. And I have to tell you, that's about the best day you can have. So, so Alicia, I know you're on our Zoom. Thank you so much for your continued support of the Esplanade. And we're delighted that the board unanimously asked you to stay on with us as an emeritus director. And we appreciate all of your support of the Esplanade Association. So thank you. And then our second departing board member, departing but only so far with emeritus status, is our vice chair, Frank Paniotto. Frank and I share a connection to our alma maters, the University of Connecticut. And so right from the very beginning, when I was interviewing with the Esplanade Association, he made me personally feel at ease and was very willing to talk college basketball. There were better years in past than there are currently for us, at least on the men's side. But as our vice chair and executive committee member, Frank has taken a leading role in ensuring that the Esplanade Association has fantastic leadership. He's also served on our finance committee and worked very closely with our finance committee and our chair, Harvey Becker, here tonight to launch the Esplanade Association's first endowment, which we're excited to announce tonight, just was formed over the last several months based on the support of many of you to our first capital campaign. And it was Harvey and Frank's terrific work along with our full finance committee that's allowed us to launch that endowment. Frank's been also an important link to several community partners and local schools and was a very early supporter of our Charles Bank Landing efforts from its really early years of studying the best usage of that public parkland to be able to maximize the benefits to the public. And so we really appreciate Frank for all of his work on the Esplanade Association board and are delighted to have him join us as an emeritus director. All right, so all of those folks help us do the fantastic work that we were able to accomplish over the course of the last year, and we'll get to preview a little bit about what's coming up in the next year. So I will turn it over to Allison to talk a little bit about what we did this year.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to share some of the highlights from 2021, beginning, of course, with the 20th anniversary celebration for our organization. These 20 years in partnership with the Department of Conservation and Recreation have made everything that we do possible. And many of you may remember last year we kicked off that celebration with Hatched, a custom-made projection and sound show created by Maria Finkelmeyer and MF Dynamics, specifically made for the DCR Hat Show. It's just a really wonderful way to celebrate this iconic space and the partnership that brings us all there together, along with an estimated 35,000 to 40,000 people in the middle of winter, and one of the longest and darkest winters yet with everything going on with COVID. So we were really pleased to kick off our celebration year with Hatched and then move forward into our winter programming season of our fantastic winter fitness programming spearheaded by our wonderful programs team and the many great partners that you see on the screen here. Not only bringing folks into the park for our Frost Fit series with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, but bringing in some new virtual programming to help people who are stuck at home during COVID to have some really wonderful fitness and dance opportunities with the great partners that you have here. So it was a really lovely and cold way to start the year, but moving into spring, by May, we had a wonderful partnership blossom with Rob Gronkowski and his Gronk Nation Youth Foundation, providing us with an incredibly generous $1.2 million donation for the renovation of Charles Bank Playground. We're so excited to bring Rob and his charity group to work in partnership with us and DCR to do a complete overhaul of the Esplanade's oldest playground. We're looking forward to using the generous funds he's provided for us on custom state-of-the-art equipment, landscape improvements, and seeding a 10-year maintenance fund for the Esplanade Association to continue to keep the playground looking as good as it does on day one. We moved into the summer last year with our Esplanade Tours and Summer Fitness Series. We brought hundreds of people out to the park to enjoy our daily fitness and all of our free fitness classes and free guided tours, which included our art tours, our horticultural tours, and some great bird watching programs. I just love this picture. They're having so much fun. Just some really beautiful late summer afternoons in the park to get people out and get some fitness. We also introduced some fun new programs last year with our new programs and partnerships manager, Samuel. He's brought some really fantastic new programs and partners to the organization, from our Saturdays at Stoneman program with the Boston Music Project. It really highlights the brand new musical equipment that we installed at Stoneman during our 2020 renovation project, which was made possible not only by the Lewis Family Foundation, but some really incredible board members who helped support Stoneman as the very first project between the neighbors that would become the Esplanade Association and DCR way back in 2001. So some really wonderful instruments that we installed are now getting used by kids and families and their caregivers at this Saturdays at Stoneman program. Last year, we also launched Esplanade Community Day, a new initiative with Blue Cross Blue Shields joining us once more for the 5K, but adding in our incredible Ground Beat program spearheaded by the incredible Catherine Morris and the Boston Foundation helping to make that day possible. Just a really wonderful way to bring people into the park, not only for the 5K, but great vendor fare, get a bite to eat, and enjoy some wonderful music. So we look forward to bringing both of these programs back later this year. Up next, moving further into the summer with our 10th annual dock party, a little bit of rain didn't stop a sold out crowd of 300 who joined us behind community boating last year in July. So we had a really lovely evening, just taking in the sunset and enjoying each other's company for one of the I think one of the first events kind of in that gap that we had during the pandemic last year. We're really grateful for that. This past year was the 3rd year of our Lasting Esplanade Arbor Fund initiative, during which we planted nearly another 50 trees, bringing our total to almost 200 trees since the LEAF initiative began in 2019. It not only includes tree plantings, but soil improvements and air spading, pruning, and tree removals in partnership with DCR. So we've done a lot of great work to keep our 1,700 plus tree canopy strong and improving the quality of those trees, their species diversity, and strengthening them for a future of uncertain climate. We moved later into the year with our Moon Dance Gala special edition on plein air to bring everyone out of the tent and onto that DCR Hatch Oval lawn. It was a beautiful afternoon and included some fun lawn games like the baby hatch shell that you see here, a really excellent handcrafted mini golf hole or putt-putt, I don't know what we say here, but little golf hole, which was a lot of fun, and joined by so many of our wonderful board members and supporters for a really beautiful evening on the Esplanade that raised over $1 million. And last but not least, we ended our 20th anniversary year being honored for the 2nd year in a row at the Prudential Center's 31 Nights of Light. So that was the 2nd year that the Pru lit up all in green for the Esplanade Association among 30 other nonprofits throughout the month of December in 2021. And speaking of green, sharing the other new statement that's come to the Esplanade Association's website through a working group in partnership with our board and our staff to chart a course of action for a changing climate on the Esplanade. We're committing to the following actions that you can see here, and there's more on this on our website. Our team is currently crafting a climate action plan with dozens of strategies and tasks that will incorporate into our projects and programs over the next several years to strengthen and fortify Esplanade's 64 acres, and also to include new programs and educational opportunities to help bring climate change resilience and sustainability to a wider audience on the Esplanade and beyond. We have a lot of fun stuff to come in 2022. Excited to get into that. Michael, I thought you were here behind me. We all know that's not true. So our first fun event this year was Frozen in Life, which the commissioner had mentioned. It was great to see you there, Commissioner. We had a wonderful time with over 3,500 visitors who joined us over the spring equinox weekend to celebrate the welcome of spring with over 45 sculptures crafted by artist Anna Thurber. She visited the Esplanade with our Director of Park Operations all throughout 2021, sustainably harvesting botanical material to embed into her beautiful ice sculptures. So you can see one here being presented from some spring blooms. And it was just a great day 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, despite some tough weather on Saturday, to bring a lot of folks out to the Esplanade and to gain some new appreciation for the biodiversity of our plant species. And I'll turn it over to Michael for the marathon.
Thank you, Allison. I'm delighted to share that we are in year 4 of Team Esplanade, and our appreciation to the Boston Athletic Association for naming the Esplanade Association an official charity of the Boston Marathon. You see the faces ringing the photo on the outside there are the largest team that we've ever had for the Esplanade Association this year. 16 runners in support of the park, all with varying fundraising goals and personal missions. We have, I think, at least one of our runners here tonight, right, Nick? So thank you for running 26 miles for the Esplanade this year. And I know at least a couple of other runners are following along on the Zoom tonight. And so we're delighted to have the team running a couple of weeks from now, 2 weeks from now or so, 2 weeks from today, maybe, in support of the Esplanade. So, this is such a wonderful opportunity to connect us to one of our largest communities of park supporters. So many people get their miles in on the Esplanade every year over the course of the grueling winters in preparation for the marathon, or just to clear their heads and get outside and go for a few miles. And so it really connects us to a community that we think is so mindful to us as the sort of hyper users of the park with such a frequency, and having a team that's running to raise funds to support pathway improvements and to support tree planting that creates cleaner, healthier breathing air on the Esplanade. It is a virtuous circle that really provides us a great connection to these runners and to the causes that they are supporting on our behalf. And so we really appreciate all of their support and are delighted to have the marathon team back this year running for a spring marathon. Summer on the Esplanade, a return of several of our most popular programs and events and activities. And so last year, as many of you may remember, maybe we've all put it out of our minds by this point, but it wasn't until about mid-May that the governor announced that we would have a return to in-person programming and a lifting of the in-person capacity cap for gathering. And on fairly short order, as Allison detailed, that meant that we brought back our 5K. We introduced Community Day. We brought back fitness classes and musical concerts. But this year, we're really hopeful to have our full suite of activities back in the park for you all to enjoy and your neighbors over the course of the year. Children's music and move it programming with the Boston Music Project. Our concert series will be back with expanded funding from the Boston Foundation, which we're really supportive for. And so we expect to do 8 hours of free concert programming this year through our Groundbeat Free Riverfront Music Series. Community Day will be back and expanded with new partners, including the Beacon Hill Village, along with adding a Boston Music Project continuing component to that day, and bringing our 5K back fully in person this year with a little bit of a longer runway to sell bibs. So for those of you that are so inclined, we have bibs available right now, and you can sign up for the 5K in a few weeks. The River Fit Summer Series coming back, our guided tours, which have become actually increasingly popular through the pandemic. This was something that we really introduced in 2020 for the first time, starting with some virtual tours. But as we were allowed to start having folks gather back in the park again, these have actually increasingly become very popular. And so we've got, as you saw earlier, bird watching tours. There are public art tours, history tours of the park, tree tours, history tours with a women's history flair to the impact that women have had on the Esplanade, and many other different topics and content areas. And so if you're interested in those, we have a full schedule for all of our events on esplanade.org, and you can see the specific guided tour offerings that are scheduled for this year, but we've significantly expanded that series. And so I believe Samuel maybe can give me a list. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of 10, 12 tours this year. 15 or 16. So see, they grow by the day. And so we're really proud to be offering those this year. And then finally, our individual and group volunteer program is back in full this year. And so if you know a group that would like to come out and spend a day in the park, we are pretty much full for the DCR Park Serve Charles River Cleanup Day with Jenny. I think we're like 600 people coming that day to clean up the Esplanade, just the Esplanade that day. And that's in partnership with our friends at CRWA and CRC and the Emerald Necklace and others, Muddy Water Initiative. And so it's great to have those partners cleaning up a number of different of the waterways and parks around the area, but that there are a number of other opportunities for groups and individuals over the course of the year. And now to talk a little bit about some of the projects we have coming up this year, I'll bring Allison back.
Thank you, Michael. I'm really excited to share more about our Pathway Safety Improvements Project. This is one that has been in the works probably for over 10 years in terms of reports and studies conducted by state agencies like DCR and MassDOT, by professional groups like Livable Streets Alliance and Walk Boston, and by transportation planning professionals like the ones we're working with on this project at STOS and Nelson Nygaard and NeighborWays. So kind of compiling all of the wonderful data analyses and recommendations that came through those multiple reports to begin with a level 1 immediate impact project at the 3 sites that you see here on the Esplanade, which have continued to have a high potential for unfortunate incidents to occur as you have people moving in different directions on different devices or on foot and at different speeds. Many of you probably know the Esplanade is probably the busiest DCR pathway system in the state. And on top of that, it's probably the fastest way across town during commuting hours. So seeing a lot of new devices, e-bikes now being allowed to ride at speeds higher than they had been previously through park pathways. And of course, all of our visitors on foot, on scooters, on skateboards, and everything in between. So some of the work that we'll be doing includes pavement paint and signage to help encourage a culture of yielding and sharing in the park, helping everyone see that it's not bikes versus pedestrians, but that there's a space for everyone, as long as you move a little bit more slowly and a little bit more carefully for everyone else who's there in the park with you. So we'll have more to share soon, including a public meeting to share some of the designs that we've been working on in partnership with DCR. But this has been a long time coming, and we're excited to bring some new color and some new safety messaging to the area underneath of the Longfellow Bridge, the 4-way intersection at the play space, and underneath of the Mass Ave Bridge where that ramp hits the Esplanade. The next project that we were excited to share more about this evening is coming back to Stoneman Playground. We mentioned earlier in the evening that Stoneman was the very first partnership project between the neighbors that would become the Esplanade Association and DCR back in 2001. In 2020, we came back just in time for our 20th anniversary year with some of those founding members of EA, from Gerald Oristaglio to Margaret Pokorny and others, and came together to install musical instruments and some new fantastic educational equipment at Stoneman. We're back for more. We couldn't stay away. So we have even more musical equipment coming in, from the drums that you see in the bottom left corner to the inverted cymbals that you see in the top right corner, as well as some really incredible universally designed accessible equipment like that one in the top center. It can fit as many as 10 kids and is fully accessible for children who have different levels of physical ability to still be able to enjoy that time with their friends. It'll also be some of the first spinning equipment at Stoneman. So we're excited to bring new equipment that activates different senses, like your proprioceptive and vestibular senses for kids, which they haven't had so far at Stoneman Playground. We're also bringing in a new sculpture by local artist Mitch Ryerson. He had completed the original sculpture at Stoneman, which incorporated these 3 birds on top on an old oak tree that had unfortunately met the end of its life at Stoneman Playground. And he was able to turn that tree stump into a sculpture 12 or 13 years ago. But after the 2020 renovation project, it became clear that the sculpture was no longer structurally sound. And so we were able to salvage many of the incredible pieces that were still in great condition, and spruce them up a bit. And now we'll be reinstalling that sculpture, giving it new life and new musical instruments attached to it so that kids can still enjoy those beautiful birds and shade structure, but with a little bit of some new play value being brought to that sculpture. So keep an eye out for those 2 projects later this summer on the Esplanade. We'll have plenty of messaging out for any closures, hopefully not too many, but worth the new things to come. So I'll turn it back to Michael for Charles McLandon.
And at the end of the day, I think that's maybe like 3 of the 50 things that Allison is working on. And so there's many more, and you'll be hearing about them in the future. I'm delighted to share a little bit of information about something that absolutely every single member of the Esplanade staff and board has worked on over the course of the last year and really many years, which is the Charles Bank Landing project. As you came in this evening, there were some renderings of the project out in the lobby, and those should be there when you leave this evening. But we've done this for different audiences at different times in the past, and so I'll just voice over, very quickly how we got here. The Leap Pool had been an important part of the Esplanade for probably about 40 years, and about 25 or so years ago was closed by the predecessor agency to DCR and remained closed for the better part of 2 to 3 decades. Over that time, it had become an important, however, operations center for the park. And so the Esplanade Association, DCR, and others, as you can see reflected in this image here, had our back of house operations in the park. Our tools, equipment, supplies, vehicles, storage, plant deliveries, mulch piles, you name it. Both the Esplanade Association and DCR found this space to be a vital connection to being able to complete our shared mission in the park. And so its needed removal and remediation, paving the way for something new, also meant the need to find somewhere else to have be an operations center for the park, in addition to trying to return public access. The Esplanade Association has worked with DCR for the better part of 10 years to envision what could be in this location. And so this is a rendering that comes from our Esplanade 2020 plan, which members of our board and many leading landscape architects and architects working with neighborhoods and neighborhood associations, partner groups, developed over 10 years ago, the Charles Bank River Center. And so a beautiful riverfront multi-use facility with indoor and outdoor components to help support the interests of the public and the operations of the park. And so this is an idea that has been kicking around for quite some time. And so, that fast forwards basically to today. And so what looked like this from above several years ago, a near 2-acre site off limits to the public, ugly, a dilapidated building that really served as an eyesore for, one of the most historic spaces in the Commonwealth. Thanks to our partners at DCR, has been demolished and remediated and returned to it's sort of waiting for its next phase step, but that this is certainly a significant improvement over what was there before. And we appreciate the Baker-Polito administration's completion of the demolition of the pool, the remediation of the site, working through DCR to prepare it for what could be next. The drop-off area that you see there is now currently constructed and allows for an easier, safer, improved path into the park for short-term vehicle traffic, dropping kids off to play at the Teddy Ebersol Fields, among other things. You also see in the parking lot labeled number 4 right now, the Esplanade Association's temporary operations center. And so we're appreciative for working with Jenny and DCR to identify space in the interim term for our tools, equipment, supplies. And so we've shrunk our operations to a few shipping containers. Our vehicles park outside and we're able to get plant deliveries, tree deliveries and things in that area. But it's highly temporary, as those of you may have seen it and walking or running through the park. And so that current condition paves the possible way for the project that the Esplanade Association has put forward in partnership with many others. Charles Bank Landing, a 2-acre indoor-outdoor mixed-use site that would boast a roughly 10,000 square foot indoor facility, boasting public meeting rooms and public bathrooms and a year-round welcome center for the public to get information about the events and activities of the park, of the organization, the history of the park. And then 1.6 acres of landscape improvements that serve to reconnect the public back with all that's possible on the Esplanade. And so multi-purpose athletic and recreational spaces, event lawns, river access points, an improved riparian edge along the river, opening up river views and engagement that the public can have with the river, and improved reconnection to the Esplanade pathway system. You see there our outdoor maintenance yard that will formalize the needs of the Esplanade Association to help partner with DCR on the long-term care of the Esplanade that allows us to continue our work in taking care of the lawns, trees, and gardens of the Esplanade. And we're particularly proud as the building has developed, as it has been changed a number of times in size and scope and scale, to fit the park, to be as much space as is needed to welcome in the public to some core user amenities, while still actually returning more than 75% of the acreage on site to direct public open air access. And so we're really excited about the balance that's struck with the project that you see here. And so some of those site amenities that I've talked about so far, the landscape improvements. I think one of our real leading hopes for this facility is that it allows for a number of flexible gathering locations to welcome in the public for civic, cultural, recreational, community-based programming. And so we expect a number of events and activities that currently don't have an easy home. And we hear a lot from creative entrepreneurs and those that are looking for space in Boston to be able to have painting classes, have community meetings, have all manner of ways that people choose to gather today. It became so important and so paramount through the pandemic to understand the sort of heightened pressure on third spaces. There's a lot that's been written about home, work, and other. And that other increasingly over the course of the pandemic became public spaces, public parks, and sometimes that includes some indoor spaces. But I think having a flexible programming facility that would welcome in both indoor and outdoor programming of a modern nature in a park that is the Commonwealth busiest state park. The Esplanade sees over 3 million visitors a year. It is the busiest state park by visitorship in the DCR system of the 450,000 acres statewide. It's in the heart of course, the economic engine of Massachusetts, the population of center of Massachusetts and Boston. And yet we take very important the role of the Esplanade as a state park. And so we are trying to balance both the needs of the immediate neighbors and adjacent public and institutions, along with serving a regional and largely statewide role for those that have an interest in having events and activities take place in an open, welcoming, accessible facility that would be transparently programmed and an understanding of how any member of the public could access the space. And so it's been a really fantastic 4 years of working through the results of the DCR public process led in 2017 in hiring a landscape architect and an architect team to put forth what is really a fantastic building. What I also didn't mention, though, we're really proud of here is the LEED certification. In fact, that's probably even underselling the work that's been done in this area so far. As you may have seen in the last slide, that we are contemplating and will continue to work with our partners at DCR to figure out the maximum amount of solar energy that could be derived on site, along with having a green roof. So we're expecting this to be one of, if not the most sustainable and modernly considered buildings in the entire Commonwealth on public land for its environmental impact. We're hoping that this can be a net zero or possibly even a net positive contributing building. One of the first, if not the first, on public land in Massachusetts. And so a lot of work and thinking has been gone into this, and we appreciate the support of our membership and our donors that have helped bring us to this point, along with our continuing conversation with DCR and this fantastic group of supporters and partner groups. And so I think we're up to 24, 25 different community groups and nonprofits who've helped support this vision, from creative entrepreneurs at BAMS Fest to other cultural organizations, the Landmarks Orchestra, to neighborhood associations, community groups, environmental nonprofits, environmental stewards, and more, and along with our elected officials, and a really terrific editorial in the Boston Globe editorial board who wrote on a Sunday that this is exactly the type of partnership, exactly the type of operational model that DCR should pursue in partnering with groups like the Esplanade Association to stretch their resources farther while allowing the modernization of our highest use parks around the Massachusetts. And so we're really, yes. Thank you. We're really, really excited about where this conversation has gone. We feel in many ways like we are on about the 5-yard line before we're going to have some really exciting news to share in the hopefully weeks, if not months, but we think weeks ahead, hopefully. It's been a fantastic conversation with our partners at DCR about the ways that we can protect and ensure public access and maximize the value to the public in this 2-acre site. And so we'll have much more to share, though we'll be happy to answer questions about Charles Bank Landing or any of the other announcements and progress that you've heard a little bit about tonight. For Charles Bank Landing, for more information, you can visit our website at esplanade.org/charlesbank to get the latest on the project. But it's come a long way. We're pretty close. We'll have more to say, I think, in the near future, and we appreciate all of you that have been supporting this effort throughout.